Hi, I'm Isadora, and this is my review of, my review and my thoughts, like, who am I? You know what I'm saying? Anyway, this is my, thoughts on Sinners, the new Ryan Coogler film. Before we get into it, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. If you saw this movie, please let me know what you think about it. I think it's a fascinating film. On this channel, I talk about, like, horror media and vampires. Right now I'm currently in the middle of rewatching all of the seasons of Supernatural, and I'm gonna do, like, I don't know, my thoughts on each season. Oh shit, is there something stuck in my teeth? No, I think my teeth are just yellow. Glad we had this talk. So, I went out with some friends to see Sinners today, and I want to talk about the many aspects of it, because there's so much going on in this movie, which is both a pro and a con. I saw it with some friends. They aren't Americans, so they were super confused by it, and I want to get into that as well. Again, like, I don't necessarily think you have to make, like, the most baseline movie on Earth so that any human being from any background can understand it, and if people are missing context, that, like, your film necessarily failed. I really loved the movie, but there were some things that, from a narrative and writing standpoint, I was a little bit like, eh. But, let's get into it. We're gonna get into my pros first. My cons are, like, a quarter of the size, because overall I think this was a good movie. But anyway, my first pro that I put in my notes is Michael B. Jordan's arms. I want him so bad. I'm just biased as fuck, being real with you. But that was so real. Like, my friend who I saw it with, he's gay, and he was like, something we both struggled with. So Michael B. Jordan was playing dual roles as twins. I don't think that worked very well for a number of reasons. Me and my friend, we literally couldn't tell the twins apart, and it, like, made the movie confusing. Just in that aspect, there were a lot of things we both really liked, but, my friend who I saw it with, he's gay, and he was like, maybe they should have solved that by, making one of the twins naked the whole time, and I was like, real king. Anyway, this movie has one of the greatest scenes I have ever seen in any movie ever, and I give it infinite props for that. So a big theme throughout this movie is, like, the power of music to lift the veil, and, like, how music can both, like, heal and harm, and in numerous cultures around the world, there's, like, a connection between mysticism and music. And, there's a scene where literally, like, the past, present, and future of musical sound all combined, and it gave me full body chills. I felt like I was tripping balls. It was beautifully shot, beautifully executed. One of the most creative and interesting scenes I've seen in a modern film in, like, years, potentially. Brilliant. Especially if you're a fan of, like, music history, particularly blues, this is an incredible movie for you, which, like, I really enjoyed the movie on that level alone. As an American with a love of, like, music history and, like, old school blues and jazz and stuff like that, this movie just, like, lit up my spirit. But, my non-American friends who don't really have that, like, cultural reference and that background and that relationship and understanding of those kinds of music, I feel like they were a little more removed from the film. Again, I don't think that's a weakness of the film. Like, not every film is gonna resonate with everybody in the same way. That's just, like, the nature of art, and that's not necessarily a criticism of the film. But I think, if you're not really into, like, blues and US music history, particularly, like, the innovations made by Black Americans during the 20th century, like, if you have no background or interest in any of that, I think a lot of this movie will go over your head, but that's your problem, baby girl. I thought it was stellar. So next time I said a really interesting take on vampirism. So, you know, on this channel a lot, I focus on spooky shit. I focus on horror media, books, television. Vampires are my truest and most long-lasting fascination. Like literally, I think we're going on like 25 years of me being into vampires by this time. And I really appreciated their take. Like, they're kind of like expansion of the vampire lore world, in a sense. Like, we honestly, the vampires, they weren't that deeply explored as like characters, but one tweak I thought they made was really interesting to the lore was the idea that, like, when a vampire sires other vampires, they all kind of share a very strong collective hive mind, and they all kind of share each other's abilities and memories and experiences. It's almost like, if you've ever watched Star Trek, it's like a Borg vampire mind sandwich. Like, I thought that was super interesting and cool to see, and that aspect of vampirism in this world alone raises a lot of questions when we have a movie that's kind of exploring, like, the deep institutional racism of, like, the American South in the 30s. Like, it's just very many interesting juxtapositions, a lot of, like, I like that they kind of stuck to the rule that, like, so vampires in this universe, they don't like garlic, they don't like sunlight, and, they can't enter anywhere unless they're explicitly invited, which is something that not all vampire writers stick to. I always think it's interesting to see, like, what like writers stick to when it comes to the lore of vampirism. Like, what are they using vampirism to represent, and how does it function in the world? There was some murkiness, I think, in this in terms of, like, what vampires actually represent. My friends I saw it with, one of them was, like, really confused as to, like, what the message of the film is and what they were trying to say. We had, like, a really cool, like, discussion about it, and I wanted to bring that here, and also I wanted to ask you, like, what did you take from the movie? What did you think about it? If you're a fan of, like, vampires, like, historical films, like, what did you think of everything they were doing within this movie? I was overall really into it. One other note I made, I thought it was a really, like, kind of tight and succinct representation of how white supremacy has many faces, and anyone could be, like, an agent of it, and in kind of, like, the complicated soup in which we all exist, like, the lines of, like, good and evil, and, like, who could become, like, essentially an agent of white supremacy, or who could be acting in favor of it, even unconsciously, is, like, very, very blurry. I thought the film did a really good job of, like, showing that. So, in that aspect, I think, like, the murkiness of it is kind of the point, because it's like anybody could become corrupted, essentially. So I thought that was kind of what they were going with, and maybe I'm wrong again, like, I wasn't in the writing room with these people, you know what I'm saying? I'm just some dumb bitch online. What else did I say? So one thing, as somebody who loves old school blues and is a lover of just, like, music history, and, like, I have especially, like, as a singer myself, as somebody who has made, like, rock and blues music, you know, I'm a fan of everybody from, like, Led Zeppelin and, like, the people they stole that shit from. You know what I'm saying? So, for me, as somebody who knows a lot about blues history, from this movie, I feel like it, so I'm not saying that I 100% know what it is, and my take is the only correct one, and if you think something else was going on, that you're wrong. Again, art is very subjective, and that's what makes art worthwhile. But within the tradition of blues in the US, there's, like, a long history of the intermingling of the blues and the occult. And a lot, like, for example, probably the two most famous I could think of right off the bat are Robert Johnson and Screamin' Jay Hawkins. So Robert Johnson, a big part of his lore as, like, a blues musician is that he was struggling and he sucked ass at playing guitar, and he went to the crossroads in Mississippi and made a deal with the devil for, like, fame and skill as a blues musician. Then you had Screamin' Jay Hawkins, Literally, this dude was born in the 20s. He was the first goth baddie of all time. So, like, all this shit that you thought, like, white musicians were edgy for doing in, like, the 70s and 80s. I think, if I remember right, Screamin' Jay Hawkins was born in, like, in between, like, I'm gonna say, like, 1929. Bro claimed to be, like, a black magic practitioner, and he would bring skulls on stage with him everywhere he went. So there's, like, all of this lore attached to, like, blues musicians in terms of, like, making deals with the devil, doing black magic. So I looked at this movie as, like, the origin story of, like, a blues man. Which, like, I loved that. I feel like there should be more movies like that. That's the coolest fucking idea in the world. Like, when you have this rich lore and history attached to a music genre, it clicked in my mind instantly. It made instant sense to me to have, like, the occult rise and beginnings of, like, a famous blues man, like, told through this movie. So, like, that's kind of how I, like, made sense of the narrative and the world and the universe of Sinners. So, like, I loved it on that level, but I do think, because there's so much going on in the movie, it would be, like, very easy to be confused, like, about what they're trying to say and, like, what the ultimate point is. Like, I'll get into that in my critiques too, but I read the film, like, 100% as just, like, the journey of a blues man, but also incorporating, like, the real historical elements he would have dealt with as a black man in the Jim Crow South, on top of, like, these fantastical elements, because both of those things were very much, like, would have been a part of, like, the real lives and the lore of blues musicians like Robert Johnson and Screamin' Jay Hawkins. So fucked with it. So something I really noticed, this is me speaking as, like, a huge vampire nerd and a lover of conceptual vampirism, not in-person vampirism. If they find anybody bled out tomorrow, it wasn't your girl, aight? But, so I said, considering vampirism's connection to wealth, whiteness, and privilege, I really love the idea that it's ultimately the desire for money, the money that the vampires have, that ends up, like, killing almost everyone in the film. Like, it's not even, like, really lust. It's just, like, their business needs money. The vampires say they have money. That's their way in. I feel like this was very thematically strong and, like, reflected and, like, foreshadowed as well. Like, Michael B. Jordan, which, one of the twins, I couldn't tell you which one, which is a whole problem. He has this whole speech before anything goes down that, like, money is the only real source of power. And, like, I thought it was clever to, like, have that sprinkled in there, and then have, like, the only reason why the vampires eventually become, like, invited in is because they have money. So, like, even in the face of, like, supernatural evil, the real supernatural top dog is money. The dudes who wrote about, like, in the Bible about the fall of Rome, they would fuck with that. They would agree. Oh yeah, so something I said, this movie kind of reminded me of Bram Stoker's Dracula. So I don't know if this was intentional or not, but if it is, it's super cool. In Bram Stoker's Dracula, essentially the catalyst for all the evil shit that goes down is the purchase of property. And it's the same in Sinners. So I was like, So yeah, I just wonder if that was on purpose, like, very interesting. I respect, like, because there was just such, like, a loving homage to, like, the blues and the genre and the conventions and the lore of the genre in this film that I was just delighted by. Delicious. One thing, so, my friends, he was like, I don't get what they were really saying, because, so, like, when people became vampires, they essentially said that they wanted to start, like, a classless, raceless society where everybody is connected together, but, like, they were painted as horrifying monsters and, like, the villains for doing that. So, like, are they saying that, like, the oppressive society is, like, good? And I was like, I don't really think so, because in this film, you see how, like, the vampires, like, insane swarm of bloodlust is then, like, immediately mirrored by the KKK's insane swarm of, like, racially based bloodlust. So, like, I don't know, I could kind of see, like, again, like, I think it's kind of more talking about, like, the nuance within good and evil, but ultimately I thought it was really clear, when you see, like, just, like, the KKK's actions, like, immediately mirroring those of the vampires who want to, like, kill everyone, you know? So, I thought, again, like, there were some things that were really murky, and I'm not roasting my friend at all. There were some things that I missed that, like, he told me about. You know, we had, like, a really constructive and interesting conversation about the film. When I get into the cons, so, like, again, like, I'm hyping this film up because I believe it is a fantastic film overall, with one of the best scenes I've ever seen in any film. But there were some issues that I did have with it, and I'm gonna get into those. So these were actually all my notes of, like, things that I really loved about the film. Now we gonna get into my cons. So for me, honestly, in the film, so Michael B. Jordan was playing these twin brothers called Smoke and Stack. I literally could not tell which one was which, and it, like, deeply impacted my experiences of, like, following the characters on their journey and empathizing with them and understanding what's happening, man. So, like, they had, like, the same haircut, the same beard style, they dressed the same, and they had the same motivations, and they acted the same. So, again, I'm not putting this all on Michael B. Jordan either. I think this is something to do with writing. I feel like, again, we're gonna get into it. I feel like there was just so much happening in this movie in a short span of time that there wasn't enough time to, like, fully develop everything properly. And that comes down to, like, writing as well. But again, that could just be my opinion. Maybe some other people will, like, disagree with me. But in the case, so, like, literally, I started referring to them as, like, Michael B. Jordan and Michael A. Jordan, and then they became, like, Michael A. B. testing Jordan in my head throughout the movie, and, like, there's so many critical plot points where, like, in order to fully get invested in the film, you really needed to know which one of them was which, and I just didn't. Like, there was something very important that I fucked up on. I thought that they were one guy, and, like, so whenever they were together on screen, I realized that they were, like, two identical twins, but whenever they were, like, alone with another character, like, separated from each other, I didn't know which one was which, and, like, if, like, you didn't catch, like, what was happening, like, you would be confused. Like, I thought, one of them was, like, had, like, a dead baby with, like, a spiritual woman, and he was cheating on her with a white chick at the same time, because, like, I didn't realize they were, like, two separate dudes. And I talked after the movie, my friend and I, we were, like, just chilling in a cafe, and I was like, bro, like, please be so for real with me. Tell me if I'm just stupid and you 100% understand this, and this is just, like, my dumb brain. I was like, yo, I could not tell, like, the Michael B. Jordan twins apart. Like, I didn't know which one was which, and I was really confused at several points. And I realized that, like, I'd wildly misinterpreted core parts of the film. Like, what did you think? Like, did you get it? Like, is this just me? Am I stupid? And he was like, no, they were literally styled the same. They had, like, the same manner of speaking. They acted the same. Like, I was confused at points too. And he was like, I don't even know, like, from a writing standpoint, why they even had, like, him play twins. And I was like, yeah, because usually, like, when you're trying to show, like, sibling dynamics, it's to show, like, how similar and different they are, and to reflect things about the characters, or, like, screenwriting, like, 101, like, what a character's motivation is what defines them, and sets them apart, and shows how they move in the world. And having two characters that have, like, the exact same motivations, the exact same personality, like, why, man? It was real confusing. So, like, at the end, I was able to tell who was Smoke and who was Stack in retrospect based on the context clues by looking at the women they ended up with, and that's when I was like, wait, so, like, nobody was cheating on anybody with anything? That, like, really distracted me, to be super real with you. Like, yo, like, I don't know if it's the writing or, like, what was going on, but, like, Michael B. Jordan did not Lindsay Lohan that shit. This was, like, not The Parent Trap. I was like, why? I mean, I'm glad there's two of them because, like, both of them have, like, the most beautiful biceps I've ever seen in my life, and I would like to chew on them. What were we? Bro, Michael B. Jordan's so fine. God damn it. Bro, not fair. Anyway. Anyway, but yeah, that tell me if you've watched Sinners. Could you tell them apart the whole time? Did you know what was going on with them 100% of the time? Are both me and my friend just the dumbest bitches of all time? I mean, he knows me, so it's not looking good for him on, like, the dumb bitch. Like, he's not refuting the dumb bitch allegations by hanging out with my ass 3 times a week, but... Oh yeah, another thing, so, like, the white vampires doing the Irish jig or whatever they were doing, that shit made me laugh, and I don't feel like it was supposed to, because, like, this is billed as a horror movie, and there's not really many, like, there's a couple really solid moments of levity, actually, to, like, mix up the tone, which I appreciated, like, when Michael A.B. Jordan was teaching his, like, nephew about, like, how to eat pussy, that I deeply appreciated. You know, we did have some good narrative payoffs and things like that in terms of, he learns about the man learns about the concept of eating pussy. Man eats that thing. Like, that's the screenwriting dream. But there's a lot of, like, little things like that, but I don't think you're supposed to laugh at, like, the Irish jig vampires. Maybe the point is just that white people are goofy, which, like, real, look at my ass. I mean, don't look at my ass. And not for free. Anyway. So another thing I said is that, I think unless you are an American with specific cultural references, you won't really get the film, which is fine. I think I already talked about this a little bit. So, like, for me, I saw the film as being primarily, like, the tale of, like, a blues man harkening back to, like, the lore and traditions of, like, early blues. But, my British friend was like, I thought this was gonna be a film about, like, black community resistance against white supremacy, and, like, how it ends, like, everybody dies and one man has a successful blues career, and, like, that's not really, like, a story of, like, intense community resistance. But I wasn't really looking at it like it had to be that, but I could definitely see how, like, in a movie, having, like, almost all of the characters die would be, like, an unsatisfying, like, film for people. But, you know, I fuck with meditations on death. That's, like, my thing, so. But yeah, if you saw it, did you agree more with me? Did you agree more with him that, like, the ending was, like, incredibly narratively unsatisfying? Or did you feel some other kind of way? Let me know. So another thing I put down, I feel like because so much happened narratively in this film, it was super muddled. In the conversation I had with my friend, like, there was core moments that we both missed that we clarified for each other, and stuff like Michael A.B. testing Jordan that, like, we didn't even figure out together, really. So, like, I'm just gonna give you a list of, like, all of, like, I feel like this is a lot to do in one movie, and it would be hard to execute all of it successfully within one movie. So, basically, we have multiple love stories. We have a story of 2 criminal brothers returning home with money they stole to open a juke joint, the KKK's looming revenge, the cruelty of sharecropping and segregation in the Jim Crow South, vampires trying to convert everybody on Earth into vampires to create, like, a vampire utopia, the main character having a dream to be a blues performer against the wishes of his family. We have, like, one guy playing identical twins. we have like the occult, we have like a couple that had a dead baby and a complicated relationship. Like, you see what I'm talking about? Like, that's just so much that is deeply complicated happening in like one film. So I feel like because of all of that, it does get kind of muddled and confusing, and like it can be hard to know what was going on. So one thing I actually brought up to my friend, I was like, you know what really bothered me? And he was like, what? And I said, so throughout the whole film, they set up this precedent that vampires cannot enter anywhere unless they are explicitly invited. But then like all 50 of like the Irish jig-ass vampires just bum rush the house together when like nobody wants them there. Like, how did that happen? And he was like, oh, it was like really, really quick and you might have missed it. But one woman, remember when the vampires threatened to go kill the Chinese woman's daughter? And I was like, yeah. And like she yelled that all of the vampires should come in the house just to like to distract them so they don't come for her daughter. And I was like, oh. So like I missed like key narrative beats, I think, because I was so preoccupied trying to figure out Michael A.B. testing Jordan and like imagining myself chewing on his biceps. Like full Hannibal Lecter, baby. Like, we're making a fucking beef Wellington tonight. Bro, has anybody ever seen a beef Wellington in real life, or is that just something that Gordon Ramsay made up? Can you tell I'm like low-key white trash? Anyway, so I was like confused on that. We were both confused on Michael A.B. testing Jordan and the twins. Like, he was very confused about like what the overall moral message of the story was, and felt like the ending was very unsatisfying. Again, I feel like some of the certain things that he missed were because he didn't have like the cultural knowledge that I have as like an American with deep respect for like my spooky forefathers. Yeah, one thing, and there's just a lot of things we were going through together. We were like, do you remember this thing? Or like, why did this thing happen? Or like, what did this mean? I tried to explain like a lot of things to him, like especially about like how sharecropping functioned and like how like Jim Crow was, and like the like blood purity laws and like quadroons and like all this fucked up ways of like categorizing people and like how heavy it was. He didn't really know, like he knew some stuff for sure, but there were certain things where he would be like, I don't know why it was like this, or certain nuances he missed. Like, he was like, I thought it was really cool that like they included like Asian characters in the movie, and I was like, did you notice how like when they went through the specific towns, everybody in those towns almost everybody was black, except like the white man who owned the house. And my friend was like, yeah. I was like, back in these days, America was heavily segregated due to Jim Crow, so like when they were showing you like whole areas of land where like, or whole parts of cities where everybody is black, or like probably that Asian family that owned the store in the film, I don't think they would have been allowed to open a store in like white areas, and that's why they were there. So like this thing that he thought was just like a cool like example of inclusion was actually just like historical segregation being like accurately represented. So anyway, I really liked the movie. I would recommend it. I thought it was sick. I thought it both worked as like the supernatural genesis of a blues man. I thought it worked as a vampire movie. It kind of gave me like Dusk Through Dawn vibes, where you feel like you're almost watching like one genre of film for like half of it and then it switches. Or like the Hannibal television show, which like the first season is like a police procedural with like supernatural elements, and the rest of that show, girl, I don't know what that is, but it was very sexy. Anyway, so please, yeah, if you've seen Sinners, please let me know what you think. And if you enjoyed it, I'm a big fan of it overall. The critiques I have, like, they don't really destroy for me, like, my enjoyment of the film or my respect for what they've done or how, like, cool and interesting it is. Anyway, that's all for me. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.